Welcome to the Empowered Wife podcast, where it's all about fixing your relationship without your man's conscious effort so that you feel desired, taken care of, and special, even if your relationship feels completely hopeless. I'm Laura Doyle, and today I'm talking about how to attract your husband in bed. My guest, Danny, was already crying herself to sleep most nights when she learned about her husband's affair with the receptionist. He told her that he planned to fake it through the holidays and then leave. She convinced him to go to marriage counseling, and that's when they began to separate and divorce. But she made some changes, and her husband surprised her by moving back in. She now says she never knew marriage could be this good. She's going to tell us how she did it. Then I'll be giving out the worst relationship advice of the week award, which your friends and family might say out of love, but it just causes more stress and pain. All that's coming up, but first, let's talk about how to attract your husband in bed. If the sizzle is missing from your bedroom, you may think, like I did, that it's because of circumstances beyond your control. The good news is that the real reason the passion is running low is probably something well within your power to change, which means it's within your power to enjoy feeling sexy and desirable again. The key is recognizing what stands between you and the satisfying physical connection we all want. If sex is rare or non-existent in your relationship, you may have chalked it up to one of these common myths. And the sooner you uncover the real reason your love life is disappointing, the sooner you can skyrocket the passion again. Here are the common misconceptions women have about why they're in a long dry spell, along with the underlying cause, so you can make the adjustment to attract your husband in bed. Number one, it's not happening because he doesn't like how I look. I hear this one a lot. We women are so afraid we just aren't pretty enough to turn him on anymore. But I promise you, it's unlikely that this is the reason sex has gone missing in your relationship. Even if he says it's because you put on weight or he's not physically attracted to you anymore, that's very hurtful, but it's just a distraction from the real problem. Don't get sidetracked worrying about that. The fact is, you still have a woman's form, so you're all good there. When a husband shows a lack of attraction to his wife, it's either because he doesn't feel respected or because he feels mothered by his wife. It's often both. What happens in the rest of the relationship has everything to do with what happens in the bedroom. Respect is the best aphrodisiac for men. If he's feeling respected as a man and not demeaned or like a little boy, it's amazing how quickly he becomes attracted to his wife again. Number two myth, if you want it to happen, you just need to be the aggressor. It makes sense that if you want to have physical intimacy, you should just come out and say so or get things going by doing the thing that you know men like. That's how you get things done at work, after all, right? Just be direct and speak up assertively, right? But that's not so effective when it comes to lovemaking. Saying things like, we should have sex, or even, do you want to go mess around? It just isn't as effective as using your natural magnetism. In fact, that kind of instigating is a turn off, not a turn on. If you think about it, that's not how you got together initially. Chances are he was the aggressor when it came to sex in the early days. All you had to do back then was be receptive. Turns out that is still a good approach, just being receptive rather than aggressive. I know the fear is that since he never initiates it now, if you don't say or do something, it'll never happen, right? But my experience is that when you stop obsessing about how it's not happening and go back to flirting and making yourself feel happy, well, we women are like magnets to steel. Myth number three, since men are ready to have sex anytime, he must be the problem. Actually, that's us women you're thinking of, right? On this one, women are perpetually ready for sex physically. We always are, more or less, right? Of course, it may take a little doing to get us in the mood. And sometimes it's not going to be the convenient time, right? But we women, we can always perform sexually. That's never an issue. That's just how we're made. But performance can be an issue for men. And anytime they feel pressured to perform but can't, that can be embarrassing. And most humans will go a long way to avoid feeling embarrassed or disappointing someone that they love. He may be avoiding the whole topic to protect himself from feeling embarrassed or like he's disappointed you. Consider seizing your opportunities when they arise instead of trying to get them to arise when you want them to. Pun intended. It may sound funny, but if you want a hotter sex life, Say yes when he's ready to rock. You may not start out in the mood, but that doesn't mean you won't get there. Number 4 myth: the lack of sex is because of his health, his job, the stress, the kids, etc. If you chalked the lack of action up to stress, work, the kids, or his health condition, well, all of that can have a chilling effect on physical intimacy for a time, sure. But if the lull has lasted for months or years, there's likely something else amiss. A great sex life is all that it's cracked up to be. But getting back there can feel vulnerable. And if you've been thinking and it's up to him to solve this and all you can do is wait, consider the possibility that the ball is likely in your court. It may feel incredibly risky and uncomfortable and awkward to let him know that you miss being touched that way, but that could also be the key to busting out of the so sad status quo you're in. There's nothing more attractive or compelling to a man than to see his wife's vulnerability. That is very attractive. Myth number 5. Once he can't perform, it won't come back. One of the astonishing things I've been privileged to witness as a relationship coach is that physical issues with male sexual performance are often temporary and circumstantial rather than permanent and hopeless. Often when a woman starts practicing the connection framework and the intimacy skills, the sexual chemistry is restored and suddenly he's as good as new again. Of course, we live in an age of modern medicines that can also address male sexual performance, which is another possibility. But what I'm talking about is that husbands with problems that seemed like stubborn physical challenges in bed have regained their function when the wife focused on revitalizing other aspects of the relationship. In other words, you have the power to make your sex life vibrant again, and it will happen as a byproduct of making your marriage magical again by practicing the 6 intimacy skills. And when you do, you won't wonder how to attract your husband in bed because you'll be busy enjoying the fireworks. If you're wondering how to get started with fixing your relationship and making it shiny again, then you need a roadmap. Get 6 simple steps to follow that will set your relationship up for success. Discover 3 common mistakes that wives make trying to fix their relationship that just make things worse when you download my free Adored Wife Roadmap. You can do that at getcherished.com. Go to getcherished.com now to get your roadmap in minutes. My guest, Danny, was already crying herself to sleep most nights when she learned about her husband's affair with the receptionist. He told her that he planned to fake it through the holidays and then leave. She convinced him to go to marriage counseling, but they just began to separate and divorce. But she made some changes, and her husband surprised her by moving back in. She now says she never knew marriage could be this good. She's going to tell us how she did it. Danny, welcome to the Empowered Wife Podcast. Thanks for coming on today.
Thank you for having me.
So start us off in the bad old days. What was going on in your marriage?
I found out that I was pregnant, and all of a sudden, my husband became a child, in my opinion. He wanted to always go out with friends who I didn't approve of. He was spending money that I didn't think needed to be spent. He was job hopping or losing his job. He started smoking marijuana. He started just pulling away. And the more he did that, the more I held on and told him how he was doing everything wrong, which now I know is not the way to do it.
Yeah. But at the time, you didn't know. You just thought, hey, I'm trying to get ready for this baby that's coming. Mm-hmm. And he didn't seem to be on the same page.
Yeah, correct. I was at a loss as to, do I really want to even bring a child into this marriage? But this is happening. My hope was that he would get better whenever the baby came.
And did he get better when the baby came?
No, because he became very, very distant. I was exhausted. He was a wonderful father. He would help with bottles and changing and that kind of thing. But I figured out, I was like, something's not right. He's very, very distant. I started snooping, trying to figure out what was going on. That's when I figured out what these friends were really about that he was hanging out with. So I would confront him about it. Then I found out that he was having conversations with female friends. Oh, I did not like that at all. They weren't inappropriate or anything, but man, I had problems because he shouldn't be talking to them. And I let him know about it. And then it just kind of one thing after another. Then last October, I could tell something was up, and I started snooping again, and I figured out that he was having inappropriate relations with a colleague, the receptionist at his work. The messages were just devastating. How, I mean, he was telling her how amazing her hugs made him feel, how he couldn't wait to sneak off of like work property so he could kiss her. Just, it was heartbreaking to see. And I confronted him. What is this? What's going on? He told me that he hadn't been happy in a very long time. He planned to fake it through the holidays. So that was in October. So he planned to fake it through the holidays and leave in January. And that he didn't love me, never had loved me, didn't believe in the word, just destroyed me.
Oh, ouch. Yeah, that sounds devastating. So he's having this inappropriate relationship, and he's doing these other things, the marijuana, the job hopping, the distance.
Mm-hmm.
Did you ever think, you know what, I should probably be getting divorced from this guy?
It never crossed my mind.
Never did.
I grew up with very strong women role models, and I never thought like, oh yeah, divorce is a way out of this. I thought this was how it was supposed to be. I never realized that this wasn't what marriage was.
So marriage it was just going to be difficult and hard and heartbreaking, and that's just being married for you.
Yeah, coexisting and no real connection or happiness. I didn't realize that this wasn't what it was supposed to be.
Wow. And part of you had the wisdom to just really hold on and fight for your marriage.
Yeah.
So he was saying he was going to leave, and what was your response to that?
I said, would you be willing to try to work on things? Would you be willing to talk to a counselor? See if we can work on this. And he wouldn't respond. So about a week later, he says, yes, I'll work on it with you. If you'll arrange the counselor. I said, okay. So I set up the counseling session. After every session, I felt beat up and bruised. She kept telling me that I was the reason for destroying the marriage. I was manipulative. I was controlling. He just wanted to be an independent man. Whenever I tried to say, hey, what do I need to change? What can I do better? She couldn't give me an answer. She couldn't tell me this is how you be a better person. This is how you come to a relationship different. I just was told everything I was doing wrong.
Oh, painful. And you probably, I don't know if you're anything like me, you were expecting her to tell him that he needed to shape up.
Yes.
Grow up
and be the husband you're supposed to be. It wasn't working.
Yeah. So she wasn't saying any of that to him?
No. She was telling him exactly about me, how I was controlling and manipulative.
Okay.
And
wow.
Yeah.
So she really took a side, it sounds like. So what happened?
So that whole time I was waiting. Let's fake it through the holidays. I was waiting. I was waiting for the other shoe to drop because he had told me that's what he was going to do. I found out that he ended it with the receptionist. So I was like, okay, great. But I was still waiting. I was still snooping. I was still determined that something else was going on. So in January, he got super angry, super mean. The therapist suggested, for the sake of our son, that we do an in-home separation. So that's what we did for a few weeks, and it got even worse. I'd never experienced the hatefulness and meanness of my husband. He's very easygoing, very calm, very joyful. And so this man was not who I knew. In the time of the in-home separation, she also suggested we separate finances. So he went and got his own bank account. I went and got my own. He blocked me on all accounts. That he was the main account holder. I couldn't do anything with our insurance because he was the main account holder. The cars were all in his name. Like I was blocked from everything. He went and got his own cell phone plan in like an attempt of separating completely. So then towards the end of January, I get a text on a Wednesday while I was at work, and it said, I can't do this anymore. After our son goes to bed tonight, I will be leaving.
Oh.
And so that's what he did. After our son went to sleep, he packed his bags and he left. And then our sessions at the counselor became very different. It was child custody, visitation, separating all the financial stuff. Then I had been listening to Audible books about how can I change? How can I save my relationship? And all of a sudden, Kill All the Marriage Counselors popped up. And because of how I felt about our marriage counselor, I was like, this is the book for me.
You're ready to kill it at that point.
Yes. Because I truly felt that it wasn't helping our relationship. I had been so hopeful that marriage counseling is going to save it, and it didn't. It destroyed it. I mean, it just crashed and burned. So I listened to it, and I was like, oh my goodness, this is me. This is me. I'm controlling. This is how I need to change it. I mean, it was all spelled out as to how I needed to come to this relationship different if I wanted anything to happen. And it gave me so much more hope again that I could change this. This will work. We can make this happen.
Wow.
And I listened to it 3 times back to back to back. And I started listening to the podcast, and I went to the website, and I was like, yes, this is what I need. So I started jumping into self-care immediately, is what I did to start becoming fully happy, because I didn't realize that my job wasn't to be a wife and a mother and to care for them 100% all the time. And it made me realize that I got to care for myself so I can love them and I can care for them. And I also started coming to the meetings at the counselor different, or any text interactions that we had that were solely about our son. It was solely about the divorce. But at this point, it was respectful. It was not controlling. It was kind. It was positive and happy. And he started inviting me to lunch. He'd send me a text, hey, what are you doing today? You want to go grab a bite to eat? Or if it was his night with our son, he'd send me a text, hey, we're going to go grab dinner at such and such. We want to meet us there at 6. And this was the man who was like, this is my time with our son. And this is the man who didn't want to see me. Like, we had it set up to where we wouldn't even trade our son, like, for interactions. We would switch at the daycare provider's house. So it was whenever I started having those, I was like, yes, this is going to work. We got this.
So you became an irresistible magnet to him.
I did. And so then he said to me one day at lunch, he says, I just wanted you happy. All I wanted from our marriage was to see you happy. And now all I see is that somebody else is going to get that. And he lost it. And I was like, you can still have me. I'm still here. I'm still married to you. And at this point, he wasn't wearing his wedding ring anymore. Like, he was done. And when he said that, I was like, I don't think you're really done. I think we can work on this. I had so much hope.
That must have been such an exciting lunch.
It was. But it also was sad because he was so sad. Like, it was hard for me to see him so sad. So that was a turning point for, I guess, just realizing, like, we can do this maybe. And then in March, I had a trip planned to go see my family with my son. It was something I needed. But I asked him to come and stay at my house so that he could take care of the animals, because it was an expense I wasn't planning on. So he agreed to do that. And a couple nights before we were going to leave, I ran over to give him something at the house he was staying at. And I said, I really missed you. And that was hard for me. Showing my emotions and being vulnerable was hard for me, because I'm supposed to be this strong woman. I don't need to show him what I feel. And he held my face in his hands and he says, "You know you're beautiful, right?"
Oh,
And kissed me on the forehead, and I left. And then the night before we were flying out, I said, "Would you like to come over and say goodbye to our son?" He says, "Yes, I'd love to do that." So he came over and he had dinner with us, and he we put our son to bed, and then he ended up staying the night. And then my son and I left. We went on our trip, and when we came back, he'd moved back in. And the night that we came back, he stood at the doorway and he says, "Can I sleep in our bedroom together?" And
oh,
because before he would in house separated, so he thought he had to go to the other room. And I said, "Yes, please do. Come on in."
so then you were vulnerable first and said you missed him.
Yeah.
He was vulnerable and said, "Can I come sleep in our bed?"
Yes. Yes.
Sweet.
So he was home, and I wouldn't say things were wonderful. I mean, we had a lot of hurt feelings. It was very hard. And I really started with duct tape and showing appreciation. Um, and that really thrived. He thrived on appreciation, and I learned that he loves to be appreciated. And so he started mimicking that back to me. It was wonderful. I would cook dinner, and he's like, "Thank you so much for cooking dinner." And oh, wow, you haven't told me that since we were married at first. And he, I think, I mean, I applied all the skills. I bit my tongue a lot because before I would offer any opinion I felt was needed, any
Right.
suggestions or advice, I thought he needed it.
Right. Job as a wife, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Help him.
And he actually told me last week, we were having a conversation about, people giving unsolicited advice. And he said, "That is my biggest pet peeve." And it was just a major realization. Wow, this is why I bite my tongue and put duct tape on. So
Yeah, it's working for
yeah,
you. Yeah.
yeah. But I have to say, relinquishing control was the biggest thing because I was so scared that he was going to hurt me again. When's he going to leave? I couldn't stand it. I was constantly wanting to snoop. I constantly want to figure out what he's up to. Is he really staying? Is he leaving? I struggled on focusing on the positives. I struggled on not living in that world of fear. And is he talking to another woman? Is he back with her? What's going on? And so I reached out and got a coach because I needed that support, because otherwise I was going to make myself go crazy and probably ruin what good things I had going. In April, he withdrew the divorce.
Wow. Oh, so, but just to pause on this for a second, you've done all this with the book. So
Correct.
far, you and a book you listened to on Audible 2 times. It's the First Kill of the Marriage Counselors, which is it's the Empowered Wife, but it's the audio version. They have different names.
Mm-hmm.
And so you got from separated, divorces filed,
Mm-hmm.
to he's moved back in, and you're having all this connect. Okay, so then you got a coach. I think that's remarkable, Danny. So I just wanted to just comment on that. Like, that is incredible. You just took a book and ran with it. So I'm impressed. But anyway, all right. So in April, he withdrew.
He withdrew the divorce in April. And then I was like, okay, yes, now we're going to go somewhere. And so, but I could tell I was controlling about that situation because I was like, when are you going to withdraw? When are you going to withdraw? Like, and so he withdrew the divorce, but then I started doing the coaching sessions. And in May, he was threatening to leave again.
Mm.
He was back and forth about whether he wanted to make this work. And so he said something to me about leaving again. And I said, "Whatever you think is best." But inside I was dying. I was hurting. I couldn't believe that he was going to do this to me again. This is why I didn't want to let him back in.
Yeah.
And so he stayed. He didn't end up leaving. Then in June, we had a big fight, a big argument. I found out that he was texting an old high school girlfriend. It was a friendly conversation, but it still triggered me. He had been liking and watching inappropriate things on the internet, in my opinion, with pornography type things. And so I was just devastated. This man's supposed to be committed to me. Why is he doing this? And I didn't come to the conversation like I probably should have. I didn't use the skills. There was a huge fight. And I have to say that past fights between us or arguments were very one sided. It was all me and my opinion, and I attacked him. And I'd walk away thinking, well, now he knows how he should behave. And this fight was different. This fight, I was destroyed. I was like, I just ruined everything. How I felt horrible. I was like, that's not how they should have handled this. It really hurt me for myself with how I came to the argument and the situation. And so once again, he was on the fence. I'm leaving. I'm done. I can't do this. You're back to your old ways. And I apologized. We had probably 2 or 3 weeks of just kind of like walking on eggshells, trying to work through the wounds that fight had caused again. And in July, he came to me and he said, I want to come to our marriage different. I want to be positive about you. I want to be positive about our marriage, and I want to work on this.
Wow.
And that was the moment that I was like, all right. This is wonderful. This is going to be good.
Wow.
And since that moment, it's been a fairy tale. It's been a marriage I didn't know you were supposed to be able to have. And we've been able to focus on the positive. We've been able to work through hurt feelings. We've had serious conversations that both of us were able to come to, cool and calm. I feel connected to my husband. He's sharing things that I never knew about him. He's sharing with me about his day, his coworkers, his friends, his family. He calls me multiple times a day just to check on me, see how I'm doing. And anytime he knows whenever he says something that hurts me now, and like he knows immediately, and he's like, "Oh, I shouldn't have said that. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to hurt you." Mm-hmm. And the man who was constantly losing his job and couldn't hold a job for more than a year, job hopping, has received a promotion, and he's going to be a manager, and it's going to require us to move, which is stressful but exciting.
Yes.
And it's wonderful. It's been great. He's been planning. He's asking people all the time, can you watch our son so we can go out? And can you watch him this weekend so we can have a weekend alone? And this is the man who didn't want anything to do with me.
I can't wait to get you alone.
Yes.
Wow. So, okay. And I love, congratulations, first of all.
Thank you.
This is so amazing. Look what you created. And I hear the roller coaster part, right? Where you kind of, you move back in, he was back in your bed, and then you're afraid he's going to leave, and then he withdraws, and the divorce, but you were controlling about it, and that caused some distance. I love this part where you say you showed up to the fight and it was the same old Danny in the fight, but something was different about you afterwards. Instead of feeling like, well, I was right and he was wrong, you actually felt kind of miserable afterwards.
I did. It really hurt me. I felt super sick. Like I didn't sleep and I didn't eat for days afterwards because I knew I messed up. This isn't who I want to be, because this program has not just changed my marriage. It's changed me as a person. I'm a manager for the company that I work for, and my team now says, I hear you. And it's great. I love it. It's changed my entire life. So
everyone's echoing, but you're using the cheat phrases, the skills,
yeah,
at work and in your marriage, and everyone around you is echoing back. this beautiful, like you were describing earlier, like a kindness and a positivity that you're bringing wherever you go.
Yes.
Fantastic. Wow. And so how did your husband feel about you coming on this podcast today?
I asked him, I said, I'm going to do this podcast. I just want to make sure you're okay with me talking about our marriage openly. And he says, can I join so I can tell Laura how much she's changed our lives? And I said, I don't know that it works that way, but I will definitely let her know. So he's starting to definitely see what a difference we've come from. It has been amazing, absolutely amazing.
Wow. And in a way, it's that's a very sweet compliment. So tell him thank you for me.
I will.
But in a way, it's really validation and acknowledgement of all the work you've done, all the change that you've brought to your marriage to make it fabulous.
Thank you. I actually I have a coworker who's having a really hard time, and I guess she found out what had happened with my marriage, and she came to my office a couple of days ago and said, what can I do? What do I need to do? And I said, you need to read this book by Laura Doyle and then we'll talk. So I mean, it's changed everything, not just my marriage. So thank you so much.
Well, I'm so happy to hear that. I give you all the credit for that. And so now you've become a beacon of hope for other women, that they see something about you and they go, oh, I want what she has.
Yeah.
So, and I can see it on you right now. You're kind of glowing and joyful and
you
look really happy. So what would you say to yourself, Danny, like the Danny before you knew what you know now about how to make your marriage shiny and amazing? What would you say to her?
The biggest thing is, I think, focus on the positives in your life. I didn't realize how negative and hateful of a person I was and how it just brought down everything else in my life. So definitely that. And also, this isn't the way marriage is. This isn't the way relationships are supposed to be. And you can do this. It's going to hurt. It's going to be rough. It's going to have some hard days, but it can happen. And it takes some time and patience.
And it sounds like it was worthwhile. Even
Definitely.
And what would you say to a woman who wants to create what you have now, where her husband's saying, can you watch our son so I can get alone with my beautiful wife? And where he calls you several times a day just to see how you're doing. And she wants to create that for herself. Where should she start?
Most definitely by the self-care, following and taking care of yourself so that you can be happy, so you can bring that to any relationship. But also for me, my biggest struggle was the relinquishing control and the unsolicited advice. You don't need to tell him everything that's on your mind. He doesn't want to know. So just take care of yourself and then definitely just listen. Because if you create that safe place, you will learn so much about your spouse that you had no idea. This man that I have been with for over 10 years is somebody I didn't even know. And I'm learning so much about. So.
Wow. Well, this is super inspiring, Danny. You really are a beacon of hope. I'm sure a lot of women are getting hope just from hearing your voice and hearing you tell this story so authentically, so honestly. And I just have to inquire, why would you share all these personal things with us on this podcast?
Because the podcast and your book brought me so much hope and support through my really rough days, and the coaching that I hope that I can help somebody else have the same hope. It's possible. You can do it. You can make it through the hard days. It might not feel like it, but you can.
You sound just like a future coach to me, Danny. But you will see
Thank you.
We'll see you back for training to be a coach. Well, thank you again. I'm so grateful for this incredible contribution you're making today to ending world divorce.
Thank you.
If you're wondering how to get started with fixing your relationship and making it shiny again, then you need a roadmap. Get 6 simple steps to follow that will set your relationship up for success. Discover 3 common mistakes that wives make trying to fix their relationship that just make things worse when you download my free Adored Wife Roadmap. You can do that at getcherished.com. Go to getcherished.com now to get your roadmap in minutes. And now it's time for the Worst Relationship Advice of the Week award.
It's the worst relationship advice of the worst relationship advice. Yeah, it's the worst relationship advice of the worst relationship advice of the week.
And the advice that's nauseating me this week is, don't let him treat you that way. Your friends or family might say that out of a desire to protect you, which is understandable. They don't want to see you get hurt. They mean well. But what exactly does it mean to not let him treat you that way? First of all, it implies that you've been letting him mistreat you, and you shouldn't be. So it's actually a little judgy. They're saying that you're being a doormat, and you've got to stand up for yourself and be more assertive, right? But what are your options? One option is to tell him he has to stop treating you that way. You could say, you should stop being verbally abusive, or stop cheating on me, or you have to stop avoiding me. Wouldn't it be wonderful if you could just say that and then he would stop? I remember one student was talking about how her husband was ignoring her and staying out a lot and how she didn't want to let him treat her that way. And when her coach asked her, can you control that about him? She paused for a long time before she said, well, I'd sure like to. Well, amen, sister. I've certainly wanted to control my husband many times, but I haven't experienced that getting me the desired outcome of getting better treatment. My students tell me the same thing. It doesn't work for them either. Another option to not let him treat you that way is you could leave, of course. You could get a divorce lawyer and get out. Lots of negative consequences come along with that, of course, but it is an option. All right, so we've got 2 options so far. And then there's the illusion of another option, which is to tolerate it. And that's where you stay and you complain. And that won't improve your situation. And that's about it for not letting him treat you that way that I know of. You can either, number 1, waste your breath telling him what to do. Number 2, break up your family. Or 3, continue to complain about it and suffer. Fortunately, there is another option, but it doesn't have anything to do with what you do or don't let him do. It's all about how you show up in the relationship. Because so many times when I was complaining to my friends about my marriage, I was just blaming and criticizing with no self-reflection about my part in the conflict. I saw myself as a victim, and I dismissed the ugly things I said and the eye rolling and the sighing that I did. I also kind of left those parts out of the story when I told my friends about my marriage problems. He was 90% of the problem from my perspective, so it didn't seem much use to clean up my little tiny 10% of the mess. But when I did clean up that 10% part by apologizing for my own disrespect and control and criticism, wow, I got a much better response from my husband. He changed too. He started treating me better. That was so eye-opening for me. It was like the veil was lifted and I could see that his reaction to me was more like a mirror of how I was showing up. So if someone had said to me, show up with more accountability, trust, and respect so he treats you better, then they would have been on to something, because that's where my power is. That's where the seeds of transformation germinate. Another student was talking about this recently when she was wanting her man to propose to her, and he was resisting that mightily, which made her so upset. And maybe her friends were telling her not to let him treat her that way. But she actually got to a place of deciding that she loved this man no matter what. And if they never got married, she was just happy to get to spend her life with him. So she told him that. And not long after that, he proposed. It was all his idea, but only after she surrendered control of that proposal. So she got a completely different response from him, right? Amazing. I've had similar experiences many times. I don't have control over how my husband treats me, but I sure have a lot of influence. I have so much power to create a peaceful, playful culture at home, or else I can always pick a fight if I want to. I still always have that option. Sometimes I exercise my option to pick a fight. It just all depends on which version of myself I'm being, and I get to decide that. So for that reason, the advice to stop letting him treat you that way is the very worst relationship advice I've heard all week. Listen and subscribe to the Empowered Wife podcast. Next week, we'll talk about 3 ways to get more love. In the meantime, I hope you're having lots of fun. Today's fun fact is that some people have a sweet tooth, but I have a salt tooth and a sweet tooth and a taco tooth.